the early 1970s, at Stanford University, Philip Zimbardo, a psychologist, began to seek answers to a profound question. What happens when good people are placed in a bad situation? Zimbardo wasn't alone. He worked with a team of researchers and graduate students, including Christina Maslach, a graduate student who would later become pivotal in uncovering the ethical issues with the study. Together, they designed an experiment. It seemed simple, but the results would reveal something far darker. The experiment took place in the basement of Stanford's psychology department. They transformed the space into a mock prison, complete with small cells, gray walls, and a heavy sense of confinement. They hired a contractor to build a realistic prison set, complete with a guard tower, cells, and hallways to simulate the oppressive environment of a real prison. 24 young men, all volunteers, participated in the experiment. They were college students. Before the experiment began, these students were tested to ensure sound physical and mental health. They were bright, healthy, and average in every way. The researchers divided them into two groups randomly. Some became guards and others became prisoners. The guards were given khaki uniforms, mirrored sunglasses, and batons. The prisoners wore smocks with numbers on them, their hair was shaved, and they were referred to by their prisoner number, not their names. At first, it felt like a game. The guards felt uneasy, unsure about how to assert their authority, and the prisoners joked about their roles. But then everything changed. By the second day, the guards began to exert power over the prisoners. They barked orders and punished disobedience. The punishments started small, like push-ups, extra chores, and yelling. But the guards soon began to use psychological tactics to break the prisoners. Some guards used more aggressive methods, such as locking prisoners in small, solitary confinement cells for extended periods of time. One of the most troubling aspects of the experiment was the role of power. The guards quickly became intoxicated with their authority. They began to escalate their abuse, forcing prisoners to perform degrading tasks like cleaning toilets with their bare hands. Some guards even invented new punishments, like making prisoners strip naked, march around, or hold stress positions for long periods of time. The prisoners, meanwhile, started to show signs of distress. Some began to rebel, resisting orders and fighting back. On the second day, 5 of the prisoners were sent home after they broke down emotionally. They cried, begged to leave, or withdrew, becoming silent and withdrawn. Other prisoners began to show signs of learned helplessness, a psychological state in which they felt powerless to change their circumstances. By the 4th day, the experiment took a more troubling turn. One prisoner, whom researchers later identified as prisoner number 8612, showed severe psychological distress. He began to scream uncontrollably, calling for his mother, and showing signs of a mental breakdown. He was removed from the experiment early. But this wasn't enough to stop the momentum of the study, which had already begun spiraling out of control. The guards' behavior continued to worsen. They forced the prisoners to sing degrading songs and subjected them to cruel and humiliating acts. At one point, the guards set up a mock trial to punish a prisoner, and some even forced the prisoners to act as informants against one another. Zimbardo, who had taken on the role of prison superintendent, became deeply involved in the experiment. At first, he dismissed the growing signs of distress as part of the experiment. But Zimbardo began to lose his objectivity. One evening, Christina Maslach, a graduate student and Zimbardo's future wife, visited the prison set. She was horrified by the conditions she saw, particularly the emotional toll on the prisoners. Maslach confronted Zimbardo, challenging the ethical violations occurring in the experiment. Her reaction led Zimbardo to reconsider his role and the study's progress. At that point, he decided to terminate the experiment, only 6 days into what was supposed to be a 2-week study. The Stanford Prison Experiment had ended, but the psychological scars would last much longer. Zimbardo later reflected that the experiment revealed how easily people adapt to roles of power and submission. The guards weren't inherently cruel, and the prisoners weren't inherently weak. But the situation had turned them into something else. For years, the Stanford Prison Experiment was seen as proof that authority is powerful and morality is fragile. But over time, critics raised serious questions. Some participants admitted they were acting to please the researchers, knowing they were being observed. Others argued that the study's design, particularly Zimbardo's involvement, may have influenced the outcomes. The ethical concerns, including the lack of informed consent and the emotional harm caused to participants, led to serious reevaluation of the experiment's validity. Situations matter. Environments shape behavior, and even good people can do terrible things. The Stanford Prison Experiment became more than a study. It became a cautionary tale, a story about the power of situations, and how environments can shape human behavior. For decades, it was cited in psychology textbooks, used to teach students about conformity, authority, and ethics. But it also became controversial. Its methods, its conclusions, and its legacy were debated fiercely. Critics pointed out key flaws. They argued that Zimbardo's role as the superintendent compromised his objectivity. They noted that some guards were coached to act more aggressively, and that the experiment lacked a true control group, making the findings less reliable. Over time, new voices emerged. Scholars and researchers revisited the experiment. Some questioned whether the participants had fully understood the scope of their involvement. Others noted that the behavior of both guards and prisoners might have been influenced by the pressure to perform their assigned roles. Still, the experiment held a mirror to society. It forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about power, about authority, and about the fragility of moral judgment. It was evident that ordinary people could commit extraordinary acts of cruelty, not because they were evil, but because the situation allowed it, or even encouraged it. The experiment also influenced policy. In the years that followed, it became a reference point in debates about prisons and the justice system. It highlighted the dangers of unchecked power and the psychological toll of incarceration. In 2004, the Stanford Prison Experiment regained attention, but the legacy of the Stanford Prison Experiment remains complex. It raised more questions than it answered. It forced psychology to confront its ethical boundaries, and it reminded the world of the profound impact of situations. So, what can we take away from this? First, we learn that power is dangerous. Unchecked authority can corrupt even the kindest individuals. Structures and systems matter. When systems fail to hold people accountable, abuses are more likely to occur. Next, we learn that situations shape behavior. We are not as independent as we think. Our actions are influenced by the environments we are placed in. To act with integrity, we must be aware of these influences. Finally, we learn that questioning authority is crucial. Blind obedience can lead to harm. We must remain vigilant and remember that morality should not be abandoned, even under pressure. We can apply these learnings to our very own lives. Understand the influence of your surroundings. Situations influence behavior more than we realize. When you feel pressured, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, am I acting on my own values, or am I being influenced by the situation? Before making a decision, take a moment to think about your reasons. Ask yourself if the environment is shaping your choice. Reflect each evening on your actions. Ask yourself, did I act with integrity today? Take responsibility for your actions. Power can tempt anyone, but accountability keeps us grounded. Share your values with someone you trust, and let them hold you to your principles. Empathize with others. The guards and prisoners were shaped by the same system, and understanding this helps us see the humanity in others. When someone frustrates you, pause and ask yourself, what might they be going through? Listen fully when others speak. Build supportive environments. Just as environments can lead to harm, they can also inspire good. Arrange your space to minimize distractions and stress. Surround yourself with positive, supportive people. The Lucifer effect. Understanding how good people turn evil. This is a book by Philip Zimbardo himself where he explains in great details how ordinary people can do terrible things when influenced by powerful situations. Based on his famous Stanford Prison Experiment, Zimbardo explains how roles, authority, and environments can push people to act in ways they never imagined. He also connects these ideas to real-life events, like the abuses at Abu Ghraib prison, showing how systems can encourage cruelty. The Lucifer effect helps readers understand why people make harmful choices and offers insights on how to resist these forces, promoting empathy, kindness, and responsibility. The Stanford Prison Experiment has inspired a wide range of films, documentaries, and discussions about human behavior and power. The most direct adaptation is The Stanford Prison Experiment, 2015, a detailed recreation of the study's shocking descent into chaos. Before that came Das Experiment, 2001, a German thriller that fictionalized the events, amplifying the violence and psychological trauma. Its American remake, The Experiment, 2010, takes a suspenseful, action-driven approach. For a closer look at the real study, Zimbardo's documentary Quiet Rage, 1992, uses original footage and his reflections on what happened. His book, The Lucifer Effect, goes further, linking the study to real-world abuses like Abu Ghraib. Online resources, including Zimbardo's TED Talk, The Psychology of Evil, and podcasts like You're Wrong About, critically examine its legacy. These works reveal its lessons, its controversies, and the enduring questions about authority, roles, and human nature. Links are included in the description. The Stanford Prison Experiment is not just a study. It is a warning, a reminder that humanity is both fragile and resilient. Fragile in its susceptibility to corruption, resilient in its ability to reflect and grow. In the end, it is up to us to create systems that encourage kindness, to question environments that foster cruelty, and to strive for a world where power serves humanity, not the other way around.